Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and patch 11.1 PTR Realms have recently got a fairly sizable update, featuring brand new dungeons for us to dive into as of this week. Additional adjustments to open world as well as exploration with the drive system, but also a very surprising amount of class changes, a lot of which are based on community feedback, hitting on multiple different classes, but Hunter in particular is the one that's getting the most amount of attention this time around. And it's actually really good to see just the amount of feedback and response to that feedback that we've seen with this recent build. Like, if you're a marksmanship hunter and you're worried about potentially losing access to a pet heading into the next update, looks like they're responding to a lot of that feedback by allowing them to regain their pet with some actual additional gameplay synergies. With additional improvements for survival and beast mastery, which is starting to shape out this class to look like a potentially viable and possibly even a powerful gameplay choice heading into Season 2, so definitely start putting Hunter on your radar. For today's video, I wanted to dive into this most recent set of class buffs coming to Hunters in 11.1 PTR. As always, if you guys want to see more regular class updates like these for 11.1 or future updates of the War Within expansion, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So the first thing we got is actually some brand new visuals and quality of life improvements for the class of the Hunter, which are going to be shared by all three specs. So a handful of new additions now when it comes to visuals, so come things to abilities like counter shot, which now has a bit more of this arcane flair to it. Very, very simple. Then abilities like your implosive trap and explosive trap now has a new animation, which has more of this, I guess, explosion effect. Then things like post haste, disengage, and aspect of the cheetah now have a slightly different animation, though it's very, very subtle. For cheetah, you'll see it's like almost like a wind-like effect when you're sprinting while cheetah is active, only for the first part of cheetah, only for that initial burst ability. Disengage also has more of this airy look to it when you first disengage. Pretty cool. Post haste also has this airy look to it, which is a very subtle change, but it is at least nice seeing them updating little things like that, because I think at the end of the day, those little details do matter. Outside of this, things like implosive trap now has a bit better of a knockup effect. It now apparently has a 8-yard radius of a knockup instead of a 6-yard radius, a very slight change, but it will be helpful in content like PvE. Tranquilizing shot missile speed apparently has also been increased, so it reaches the target quicker, which is a good change overall, though. I almost feel like the ability maybe should be more instant cast, so you have a little bit more of a responsive element to it, but at the very least, it's like one of those little convenience changes. From there on, though, beast mastery, marksmanship, and survival all are getting some significant changes, starting with the spec of beast mastery, which is getting a new visual for the barb shot ability. I want to bust out my pet here in just a second because some of those talents do function with your pet, but barb shot does get a brand new visual where it now looks red. That's really about it. Almost kind of looks like a wad of just red, not necessarily an actual shot, but I guess it looks all right. I guess it's meant to be like a bleed, so with they getting like a red animation around it, I guess makes sense, but I don't really know. I was just thinking it was going to look a little bit differently. I didn't, because it doesn't necessarily look like a shot, like a sleek arrow or a fast whizzing bullet. It almost looks like a big clump of red that's getting shot at the target, which I guess is all right. Just can't say it's my favorite animation. Though outside of this, Beast Mastery does get a handful of new talents, starting with Thundering Hooves. Casting the Explosive Shot now causes all of your active pets to stomp at 200% effectiveness. Now, it is one of those talents that I really liked running with Master Handler when I play BM, but I tried to cadaver some kind of a talent build to adjust and try some of the newer talents, and Thundering Hooves was one of them. But yeah, from actually testing it on dungeons, the damage seemed alright. It does kind of try to separate itself within the details, at least, between the normal stomp and the pet stomp, but it's really difficult to really tell that much of a difference, though. I think it's going to take some time where we'll find out if numerically this is a significant talent, but it definitely does become a little bit more niche, though I think what the whole point for this is to try to make the ability of explosive shot a little bit better, because now explosive shot has a synergy with your pet, so at least that's kind of nice to see. Also, the talent of poison barbs has been adjusted, and it's actually a lot better. Poison barbs now also not only has barb shot, has a chance to explode, dealing nature damage to targets, but also now applies serpent sting to the targets as well. So if you're trying to play builds that play around the ability of serpent sting in any way possible, you'll now have a much easier time applying serpent sting. But also, like if you play pack leader specifically, there's one talent, I don't know if it'll get much use, but envenomed fangs can now technically synergize with it a little bit better, so now your bear can consume serpent stings around the target. That one could be a very interesting combination, since you can apply this so much easier, essentially for free, just putting up barb shots on targets, which you'll do as a beast mastery anyway, which I actually kind of like that little synergy. We'll see if that does any damage once we get some final tuning numbers. Lastly, the Beastmastery 100 tier set is a little bit more functional this time around. So the Beastmastery 4 set specifically, where after you hit jackpot, infuses your pet with the mutagen, causing its auto attacks to deal nature damage to its target and up to 5 additional enemies within 10 yards for 10 seconds. Mutagenic attacks also help reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath by a second. This whole damage component of this ability has been buffed up by about 100%. And when testing it out on Motherload earlier, it actually doesn't seem to do that bad of damage. Like if you just condense all the pet damage, the actual potent mutagen isn't terrible in terms of an ability. I think previously I wasn't seeing this anywhere this high in terms of overall output, but if your tier set, at least your 4 set, is doing roughly, I don't know, 8% damage in AoE, that seems like at least a start. At least I can start tuning it from there. But it definitely does become a little bit more potent. Though I'm not a big fan of the actual animation of this effect, because it does make your pet very, very green. There we go. It took me a second for it to hit jackpot, but there we go. Potent mutagen just turns your pet absolutely just green. Not a big fan of the actual animation. Maybe that's just something to have as a work in progress right now, but yeah, not my favorite at the moment. But there also seems to be a little bit of inconsistency when it comes to actually getting the jackpot, because I'm not getting a buff for jackpot, and there's no, I don't think Bestial Wrath actually works properly when it comes to jackpot, because it's supposed to activate as soon as a pop Bestial Wrath. My pet is supposed to have the full buff, but it's not quite getting it, so there may be some issues when it comes to actually being able to proc that mutagen effect. So it's not even getting a full-on consistency. Like there, it actually ended up getting a proc, but way after my Bestial Wrath was gone. But at least when it comes to testing in dungeons, it did seem like it had decent enough uptime to actually do decent enough bit of damage for my pet at the very bare minimum. So maybe this effect is only going to grow stronger than what we've seen on PTR, which would be a good thing at the very least. Outside of this, Dark Ranger Beast Mastery, which is what I got to try out recently. Backlead also got a couple new changes, but mostly Dark Ranger has been adjusted where Black Arrow ability now does 15% more damage, and that is very, very noticeable. It is a very satisfying ability to press, and being able to incorporate kill shot, but also having it clean with BM is super enjoyable. They've also adjusted your capstone of Withering Fire, which is a really good change by adjusting it, so instead of having it proc after 3 Bestial Wrath, so like a delayed effect, it now procs as soon as you press Call of the Wild, which is a fairly standard ability the Beastmaster is rocking in most situations. Not a lot of BMs are playing Bloodshed right now. Call of the Wild seems to be like a must-have going forward, but it looks like they're trying Dark Ranger to Call of the Wild specifically going forward with the Withering Fire adjustment. So instead of having this delayed after 3 Bestial Wrath, now you're getting Withering Fire effect every time you press Call of the Wild. While you're cleaving, potentially with Blood Frenzy or single target with Wild Instincts, you're constantly getting those resets of Black Arrow every 4 seconds, which deal additional damage. And that's just overall a very good combination that feels great to play with. It just allows you to have a very good burst ability that is fantastic in AoE, and now it gets this full component with Withering Fire, plus also combination with Hunter Spray, a very strong synergy altogether that feels really good to overall experience and play through within dungeon content at the very least. Outside of this, the Beastmastery Pack Leader has also seen a few adjustments, things like Shell Cover, which defensively is not the greatest defensive of Pack Leader, even though Pack Leader thematically fits Beastmastery so well. Shell Cover just didn't quite do it. They're trying to buff it back up by a little bit. Defensively, now it's going to provide you a shield once you drop below 60% health instead of 40% health. So it's a bit of a better health threshold for that 10% damage reduction for 6 seconds. But at least it reduced the cooldown of this effect down from 2 minutes to 1.5. I still feel like maybe if they dropped down to a minute, it wouldn't be the most game-breaking thing ever, because shell cover just doesn't feel quite as strong as the alternatives available for like Dark Ranger, Smokescreen potentially. That one feels very, very strong. But at the very least, they're trying to make shell cover better. They're listening to community feedback, so it's also really good to see. Now, another aspect that's going through a number of changes too is marksmanship, and some of you marksman mains may actually be very happy with some of these upcoming adjustments. First of all, they added him a new talent, or rather a familiar talent of Unbreakable Bond. If you're someone who was going to Marksmanship Hunter and you thought, okay, well the Eagle, the Spotter Eagle, kind of a cool mechanic. I love being able to bloodlust and pop defenses and get utility from this Eagle, but I kind of miss my pet. I want to play Hunter. Most hunters play with a pet. I want to play Marksmanship, but I still want to have a pet. Well, now you can. So basically, you can now go for a pet-based build so you can get that animal companion back without losing out on the utility of having access to an eagle. So if you want to play with a pet, just do additional damage, you can, while still retaining all of that utility. So now it's a choice now between Unbreakable Bond, where you gain access to call pets, so you can have an animal companion with you at all times, while outdoors your pet deals 50% increased damage and takes 50% reduced damage, which I guess is pretty good for like open world content. It does say outdoors specifically, but dungeons are instances, so in dungeons I don't think you actually get that benefit of the pet, but I think for open world content it might be pretty good there. Though, you do have to sacrifice Improved Spotter's Mark, where the damage bonus to Spotter's Mark is increased to 20%, where the overall Spotter's Mark just could be more effective at buffing up your aim shot. So it is a bit of a trade-off. I think numerically we'll have to see how that ends up panning out for Marksmanship Hunters. I don't think the pet is going to be that consequential for dungeon and raid content, but that additional 50% more damage on your pet does make it a little bit better to some degree, though I just don't really know how good it's going to be overall. But yeah, it's at the very least it is good that they listen to the community, because there were a number of players that really wanted to be able to continue to play their marksmanship just with a pet. So sometimes the pet doesn't like to listen to my commands whatsoever as I'm trying to pull him back. But it is at least good, like I said, that they listen to the hunter community. They're giving you a couple of different options. There may be some niche situations where a pet will be kind of decent at least. But yeah, it's at least one of those changes where it is nice. I think it's good that they're at least like responded to the community feedback and some of the community issues with this change. Though, like I said before, the Spotter's Eagle is still going to be able to provide you all of the utility. Intimidation, you're not going to have that pet all of a sudden now using the intimidation ability. It's just there as a companion for you to enjoy out in the open world. But if you need bloodlust, if you need any of the other utility like tenacious or cunning, if you need a stun, the eagle is still there to do all of those things. Even things such as Aurora Sacrifice, the eagle will protect it. You don't need to have your pet doing any of those things. So yeah, you can still have the benefit, have the class fantasy without necessarily needing the pet at the same time. And outside of this, they'll also fix the number of bugs that existed in the Marksmanship Hunter talent tree. And that list is massive. Basically, instead of going over every single talent that got fixed and how it got fixed, basically for the last few weeks, Marksmanship Hunter talents and certain synergies, like for example, Razor Fragments was one of them, just didn't quite work how it was meant to at all. So there's a lot of synergies that you thought on paper were, oh, this should function, but they didn't function once you get into dungeons. And there's so many little detailed things that just weren't quite working together super well. So if you played and tested out Marksmanship Hunter for the last couple of weeks and you felt it was kind of on the weaker end, there's actually a lot of synergies that just weren't functional to begin with. So if you test them out this week specifically, this should be a little bit more of a complete version of Marksmanship and more functional as of this week for testing. Outside of this, Black Arrow for Dark Ranger has also been buffed up just like it was for Beast Mastery. It's also buffed up for Marksmanship by 15%. So, and now that there's a lot more Dark Ranger specific synergies that have been buffed up, like the auto attacking benefits like Obsidian Arrowhead as well as Razor Fragments. So now there's an opportunity for you to test out Dark Ranger as Marksmanship within dungeons and see how well it performs, because it looked like last week most people were Sentinel, but this week I think Dark Ranger may actually be pretty functional. And lastly, we have the spec of Survival Hunter, which is going also through a number of adjustments. Basically, this week, what they're trying to do is adjust the rotation to further reduce complexity and create a bit more simplicity for the survival rotational buttons, just in terms of the number of buttons and how aggressively you have to use them. However, they also want to make sure that even though you're not having to have as complex of a rotation, they want to make sure you're not losing out on damage, so you're getting a bunch of damage amplifications. Basically, what they're trying to do this week specifically is try to get you reasons to use Raptor Strike and Mongoose Bite more often by making them a lot stronger, but also to reduce the number of grenades that you get to toss out for the most part, but buff the damage of it by quite a bit. So, not as many wildfire bombs, but a lot stronger wildfire bombs every time you throw them to give you more reasons to press Raptor Strike or Mongoose Bite as a global. And they're doing that through a number of changes, like the talent of Wildfire Arsenal, Quick Shot, and auto attacks with two-handed weapons, increase the direct damage of an next Wildfire Bomb by 4%, stacking up to 3 times. Casting Coordinated Assault grants you 3 stacks of Wildfire Arsenal immediately. So this one is just a auto attacky talent that functions off of your circle line pockets to some degree, or rather Quick Shot specifically more than anything, but it stacks up very, very quickly, and it actually grants you up to 12% more damage with your Wildfire Bomb. Previously, it was just an 8% damage above flatline, but now it can technically grant you a little bit better damage in the Wildfire Bomb, so that's always good to see. It's not like you're really getting less Wildfire Bombs, but it does make them a little bit more effective, if anything. Plus, it makes those auto-attacky builds if you can get a bunch of kill commands on multiple targets. Technically, now you can stack up that Wildfire Arsenal just a little bit quicker. But now you may want to, as a Survival Hunter, kind of delay having to use Wildfire Bomb until you get some of those stacks. So it may push some of those other abilities a little bit forward, so you can really get full value out of that ability, or not having to spam out Wildfire Bomb instantly, especially when you're not sitting on 2 charges. There's now more of a reward for you to utilize the rest of your kit, put other things on cooldown, and then come back to Wildfire Bomb once it's fully stacked up. Viper's Venom as a talent has also been adjusted to also buff the damage of Raptor Strike and Mongoose Bite by 50%, on top of its original effect, which is a decent buff, and it's actually quite noticeable and stacks up with some of the other buffs that you can do for Mongoose Bite thanks to the tier set, but I'll get to that in a second. Another ability is Contagious Reagents that try to make this one a little bit better. Reapply Serpent Sting on a target that's also already has a Serpent Sting that spreads it to 4 targets within 8 yards instead of 2 targets. So if you try to spread Serpent Sting to multiple targets at the same time as survival, it's a lot easier to do. Now that you are in a playstyle where you could spam Raptor Strike more regularly, being able to apply it and spread it is a little bit easier. And there's little synergies like Pack Leader, where the bear comes out, it can then consume the Serpent Stings, which are easier to put out, to deal that damage of Serpent Sting instantly. So there's now a little bit more synergy with little talent combinations that may actually work out somewhat okay altogether. Outside of this, Explosives Expert has been adjusted to give greater damage for Wildfire Bomb and Explosive Shot by 2.5 and 5%, depending how many talent points you put into it. Previously, this was cooldown reduction for Bomb, but has been adjusted so you get, like I said, less bombs, but a little bit more damage. Bombardier has also been adjusted. Instead of granting you 2 charges of Wildfire Bomb, now it grants you 1, which you would think like maybe that would slow down the overall rotational playstyle survival, but it doesn't really slow it down by much. Plus, with the fact that bombs do a little bit more damage, it really doesn't feel all that bad to begin with as well. Wildfire Bomb damage has also been buffed up on top of it by 6% on top of all these other changes, where, like I said, yes, you're going to be throwing out less bombs technically, but like if you play Pack Leader, there's some bunch of cooldown reduction elements here, like Pack Mentality, that technically give you more bombs to begin with. So it's like one of those reductions that doesn't really feel like it's worse. It feels like it's actually better because those other globals you get to fill outside of just spam and bomb, all those other globals feel pretty good to use, but you still get quality Wildfire Bomb usages anyway. So it doesn't really make the playstyle slower or worse. I think at some point, to some degree, it actually even a slight improvement, at least in my opinion. Also, they redesigned the force set for Survival Hunter. This is another one of those things where they listen to the community, they heard you guys' feedback, and they changed it by quite a bit. So the Wildfire Bomb playstyle, where the tier set is no more. Instead, your 2 set is about the same. Your spells and abilities have a chance to activate Winning Streak, increasing the damage of your next Wildfire Bomb by 3%, stack it up to 6 steps. There's so many Wildfire Bomb stacking effects. Wildfire Bomb has a chance to end your Winning Streak. When it does, your next Raptor Strike now deals 400 increased damage and reduces the cooldown of Wildfire Bomb. So you know how I said, like, technically you're going to be using less Wildfire Bombs, but now you have so many different cooldown reduction elements, you actually get to use your Wildfire Bomb pretty regularly, and that Raptor Strike now hits like a truck. How hard can a Raptor Strike hit now? Well, good thing I still have a quick Mechagon run here. Raptor Strike can hit up for up to 10 million when you fully amp it with everything. And I'm pretty sure this is where I tried to go for like the tip of the spear above, and I think that's where I had Coordinated Assault. But yeah, Raptor Strikes can hit for a ton of damage. 10 million so far has been my highest damaging ability, I think, or hardest hitting Raptor Strike ability. And the fact is, it can also cleave. When you play the new pack leader, which has been adjusted by quite a bit, if you're not familiar with the new pack leader for 11.1, while in combat every 25 seconds, your next skill command will summon an aid of one of the beasts. A Wyvern, which can increase the damage of you and your pet by quite a bit. Boar, which charges up to targets, cleaving right through them. Or Bear that comes in, does a bunch of damage with a bleed, and also does additional damage with autos. And every single one of those additional pet summons has an extra benefit. For the Boar specifically, summoning the Boar refreshes Mungus Fury. Even if you're not running Mungus Bite, it still grants you the buff of Mungus Fury, which also increases the damage of your Raptor Strikes. It's another damage buff for that. It also causes those Raptor Strikes to cleave up to 4 targets without losing any damage. You just full on cleave, so when you hit somebody for 10 million, that cleaves 4 other targets as well. But also now this tier set damage amp, altogether Raptor Strike can do a ton of damage with an AoE content. This ability now hits very, very hard. And this makes me wonder if maybe now, after all of these buffs to Raptor Strike, maybe now this could be a moment potentially for Survival to go Mungus Bite, which I feel like I kind of fell out of love with Mungus Bite. I maybe need to just give it another shot again, but technically you can now give Survival a bit more of the single target focus, big damage playstyle that now can cleave in AoE content, which gives it more of this funnel focused playstyle, which could be very, very, very good altogether. Even though I'm not a big fan of Mungus Bite, I do wonder if this is something that potentially we could see a rise in going forward, since it can now do a ton of damage overall, with now quite a bit of cleave if you pair it together with Pack Leader. But altogether, it's a very satisfying combo that's super fun to use, and trying to synergize the tier set Raptor Strike together with the Boar, not that easy, but it's very fun when you do have all these buffs overlapping at the same time. It is actually surprisingly satisfying, even though technically they're trying to slow down Survival rotation a little bit. I think it is a slight improvement where you get full use out of your abilities. You're still throwing out a bunch of grenades, and now you're just getting more globals where you can get those really empowered Raptor Strikes, which feel much, much better to utilize now. I kind of like the direction they're heading into with this week with Survival, at least so far. Early impressions were really, really good. Some of the changes they made to Pack Leader, it feels like all the pets and all the bees that you get to summon are a lot more effective. I was actually kind of surprised just how good they were. Or I like the cleave synergy. I think that's really, really good. The Bear actually could do more damage than you summon pet. I think that is surprising for me, but the bleed damage it can do now seems to be a lot more effective. And overall, I'd say Pack Leader specifically feels a lot better to play this week for Survival than during the initial unveiling that we saw during the launch of 11.1 PTR. Outside of this, Survival Pack Leader does see a couple changes to it. Shell Cover, like Beast Mastery, does see a higher threshold for health and a shorter cooldown, which is all really, really good. Pack Mentality does technically give you shorter cooldown of Wildfire Bomb, but with a new change to the Survival tier set and how you can buff up the damage of your Raptor Strike, but also reduce the cooldown of your Wildfire Bomb, I think that ends up kind of supplementing that, so it doesn't really feel like you're losing out on uptime of Wildfire Bombs anyway. But overall, Hunters feel pretty good to play. Whether it is Beast Mastery, Marksmanship, or Survival, all of them are starting to shape up a little bit better. It does seem like there's a bit more effort and a lot of communication and feedback and response to that feedback that we're seeing by the community, like Marksmanship getting that pet back, but also some of the adjustments for Beast Mastery and their talents, and the way that the Withering Fire synergizes now with the Call pack instead of your Bestial Wrath, and the changes to Survival, also basic community feedback. This is the kind of stuff that's really good to see. us getting to test, the community gets to get the voice in there, and then does make adjustments based on the community feedback, which means hopefully Hunters comes out of 11.1 testing with some very favorable tuning. But definitely start putting this class on your radar going forward, because this potentially could be a very strong option with them getting this much attention so far, especially with this most recent build. Hunter feels much better than ever. Initially, I wasn't really super excited about Pack Leader, but now with some of these changes, I'm actually incredibly excited about the combination, the playstyles that it offers, and I feel like it adds quite a bit of depth and a lot of variety to the base gameplay of a Hunter, for survival in particular, but also with some of the changes for Marksman and Beast Mastery. It overall gets me super amped and super excited about this class, at least right now for the patch 11.1. As always though, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this update, and I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you didn't enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community if you want to get more regular patch 11.1 updates, which are posted pretty regularly. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.